it's official. Warhammer 40k just got more expensive. Now, who saw this one coming? Not me, honestly. Perhaps naively, even after all my years of playing and covering Warhammer and wargaming, I'm surprised every single time the Games Workshop decide to take the big money dial and turn it up another notch. I don't know why I find it so shocking, so indecent, what possesses me to think that things will ever change. But yes, the notoriously expensive Warhammer game just got even worse. This time, it wasn't announced. Instead, it was delivered as stealthily and swiftly as a demon's whisper. And if you were subscribed to this channel, then you might have seen it by now. I made a YouTube community post about it when it happened exactly. So, you know, maybe subscribe to the channel, don't miss out in future. But no doubt you'll be aware of Warhammer 40k, and it's a war game. And I've spoken a lot about the pricing of the game on this channel. And as always, my extremely controversial take is the game is too expensive. Games Workshop should be looking at ways to make the experience cheaper, and it really doesn't need to get pricier. But first, a word from today's sponsor. Would you like up to 90% off your wargaming and painting supplies? Who am I kidding? Of course you do. I don't know why I framed that as a question. That's an amazing discount. Well, that's exactly what Temu is offering. Temu is an online marketplace where you can pick up pretty much anything, or at least that's what they told me. So I decided to put them to the test. And I'm gonna be honest, guys, they weren't lying. They weren't lying. I got these. These are Magic the Gathering cards, of all things. Magic the Gathering is too expensive for me to play, but with these are like proxies of the cards of the black core set, and it only cost me £10 for all of these. When I saw them on the store, I just had to pick them up because I wanted to see the quality, and they're pretty incredible, actually. I think this comes with like actual kind of famous cards. I'm not sure, I don't know, I don't play Magic. Temu do everything. Fashion, jewelry, home decor, pet supplies, and more, all at extremely affordable prices, including this here. Look at this bad boy. Wow, this is a full paint stand. I've needed to get one of these for so long, and I finally got it on Temu, and it was so cheap, and it's perfect. It fits my paints perfectly. There are tons of miniature supplies to pick up, including tufts. Perhaps more importantly, there are cool things like this for all of your little brushes. Green screen's kind of ruining the effect, but let me tell you, you feel like a wandering painter when you've got this bad boy. Finally, a place for all my brushes to go, not just scattered haphazardly across my desk. They even have weirdly specific things like perfect for wargamers, like this bad boy. This is a paint holder specifically for Citadel paint pots. This paint holder actually holds them open, so you don't need to keep opening and closing the pot. It's amazing, and something I did not know I needed in my life until I used it. This place is a treasure trove, and if you're anything like me, then you're kind of a nerd with a ton of different adjacent hobbies, not just wargaming. So that means you might be into things like Dungeons and Dragons or RPGs or just general board games that require tons of dice. Well, luckily Temu has you covered. Have you ever seen this thing? This is a D100 roller. I bought this for my games of Warhammer RPG. I also picked up these metal dice for Dungeons and Dragons too. Plus when you roll them, they sound like bells. And I picked up a very cool, very chunky D6 as well. And of course, a dice bag to store them all in. This one has a magic pentagram symbol on it because, you know, I'm a dragon. Rawr. And all of these products arrive to my door in record time with free shipping. And there's even free returns on these products for up to 90 days. So there's no risk to you if you're not satisfied. And of course, Temu accept all major credit and debit cards as well. This place is a revelation to me. I even picked up some of the boring stuff like this PLA for my 3D printing. This is destined to become terrain. And yeah, even if you're just into Warhammer, then they even have Joy Toys on there as well, which is just wild to me. They have a lot, and they're cheaper than anywhere else I've ever seen before. Oh, and guess what? I can make it even cheaper for you because I've got a 50% off discount code that you can get by clicking my link in the description below of this video. So go check it out. You got no excuse. It's super affordable and it has so much stuff. You may as well just browse, right? You won't be disappointed. And thanks to Temu for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so price rise. Isn't this like the third time this year? Well, firstly, this isn't a general price rise on Warhammer. It's not an increase affecting every single miniature or every single model. Rather, this is a price rise hitting Space Marine players. So 95% of the player base instead of 100%. And the price rise is affecting a very specific bundle. It's not the entire lineup of Space Marines. But this should still concern you regardless of what faction you play, regardless of what game you play, whether you play Warhammer or not. It's going to affect all of us. And I find this secret price rise extremely exemplary of a lot of the problems with the current Games Workshop business model, the way that they conduct business, how they communicate, and the response of the community to those decisions. So I want to focus in on this one instance and explain everything that's happened and why it is so particularly bad. Okay, so this is the Space Marine Start Collecting box. Remember those? They were introductory boxes, bundles priced at £60 or $90, so they were a lot cheaper than the combat patrols that later replaced them. The Space Marine one came with 3 sneaky snipers, 10 infiltrators, 3 flying lads called suppressors, and a lieutenant variant. It wasn't an amazing bundle, basically the Space Marine side of the Shadow Spear box, but hey, I'll take what I can get. Unfortunately, these Start Collecting boxes were phased out a few years ago in favor of the combat patrol bundles instead. And for Space Marine players, this meant that they lost the Start Collecting box and instead could buy this combat patrol priced at £95 or $145. Now, you might notice that this is basically just the exact same box, but this time it comes with an impulsor. Vroom vroom, that's the tank in the corner. Now, combat patrols represented a pretty big price increase to the standard bundle that most new people would buy when getting into the game because they're convinced to do so by sales staff. It's a tale as old as time. Basically, when you start Warhammer for the first time and you wander into a Warhammer store, the sales staff are going to suggest that you pick up a big bundle because it represents a lot of value. These bundles really are the thing that most people will buy if they have any interaction whatsoever with the hobby side of Warhammer. And as a result, moving from a cheaper Start Collecting box to a more expensive combat patrol raised the barrier to entry for new players. It increased the general price to enter, and I wasn't a fan overall of this change. However, Games Workshop apologists argued that the new combat patrols came with more models, so the price increase was worth it. This is the equivalent of getting rid of the smaller bottles of milk at the local store and forcing everyone to buy 2 whole pints and then saying, but hey, you get more milk in the big one. But you know what? Sometimes I want less of mommy's milk, okay? Sometimes I'm just not that thirsty. Anyway, going into 10th edition, Space Marines are getting a brand spanking new combat patrol, consisting of some Terminators, some fire guys, and a captain and a librarian. This is a smaller bundle coming with less miniatures than the old combat patrol box and the Start Collecting box, but hey, whatever, don't look over there. Besides, it's not even available to buy right now. You have to pick up the Leviathan box to get it. But don't worry, because Games Workshop, in the meantime, have come out with a brand new product. The discounted, the bundle, the extra value Space Marine Vanguard box set. It's brand spanking new and filled to the brim with value. There it is. Look at it. Look at it go. Vroom. Woo. Now, the eagle-eyed out there amongst us might have noticed that we've seen this box set before, because this is literally the old Start Collecting box set, just re-released. Impulsor gone, exact same box, exact same sprues that were being sold before. There is, however, one massive difference, and that is, of course, the price tag. This used to cost £60 or $90, but that's not very cash money thinking these days in a world where a company can say the word inflation and no one will question it. So instead, Games Workshop have taken the very clever idea of slapping an £85 or $140 price tag on there. This represents a 40 to 50% increase in price. Hashtag SoGW. So this is, of course, an egregious price rise. But the worst part of all of it is that Games Workshop are just getting away with it. That's it. They're just getting away with it. This should be getting slammed by every single outlet, every single content creator, website, blog in the wargame hobby, because this box is an embarrassment. And yet, No? So firstly, let's get all the perfunctory stuff out of the way real quick. This price rise isn't justified at all. We're talking about a box set that went up $50 in 2 years. That's an increase of 50%. But inflation over that period was like 10% over the last 2 years. So inflation doesn't account for this increase. Anyone saying it does is factually, demonstrably incorrect. Besides, Games Workshop profit is up. They have really strong margins. They don't need to raise prices, yada yada. I've said all this before. And sure, of course, this doesn't affect everyone. Not everyone collects Space Marines. But I find this targeted increase in price particularly egregious because this is going to be one of the products that gets pushed on new players by Games Workshop sales staff. And it's this casual demographic of kids and relatives of kids who will be paying through the nose for this introductory bundle. And this raises the barrier to entry for getting into Warhammer and consequently the wargame hobby. Now, I think that is part of our role as informed, responsible hobbyists to push back against decisions like this. And yet, no one seems to care about it at all. There hasn't been any real pushback from the Warhammer community. Most people are apathetic about this and they've just shrugged their shoulders. And it's indicative of a wider problem in the wargame hobby. For this hobby to be accessible, we need the community to push for it. Compare how this price rise was met by Warhammer players with muted discussions, a closed Reddit thread, and then everyone moved on, to the trash fire that is the community response to the recent price increase for the latest Total War Warhammer expansion. For those who don't know, the latest Total War Warhammer expansion has gone up in price by £7, and this has resulted in an absolute meltdown in the Total War community as a result. Their subreddit has become filled with memes, there's calls for boycotts, there's review bombing taking place, lines in the sand are being drawn. It's clear that they're unhappy with the price rise, and as a result, Creative Assembly, the creator and operator of Total War, are having to make decisions as to whether or not they'll continue on with this price tag in future. Compare that to Warhammer, well, as a community, we're a boiled frog, slowly inured to egregious price increases in all sorts of products as a mere cost of playing the game. It's just expected now that we'll lose people to the attrition that is the inevitable Games Workshop price rise every single year. If it's only one, sometimes there's two. And it's even controversial for me to make a video talking about the fact that I think that selling the same product 2 years later for $50 more is bad. Seriously, just me saying that a 50% price increase over 2 years is bad for consumers, hurts the game, makes it less fun, less accessible, that it's dog shit, gets met with hostility. It's seen as being too negative and that I should get out of the hobby. And I frequently get messages to that effect.
What can men do against such reckless hate?
Unlikely, I'll get at least 1 or 2 comments with the predictable argument that Warhammer isn't that expensive, not when compared to other luxury hobbies. You've probably seen this before if you're on the internet in any Warhammer space for any length of time, but what do people mean by this? Well, in order to try and make Warhammer look cheap, you have to compare it to really expensive hobbies like golf or skiing or my favorite, extreme waterboarding. And sure, yeah, stacked up against those things, Warhammer has no chance. It sure is a lot cheaper to buy a box of Space Marines than it is to buy new skis or a new set of golf clubs or to plan elaborate attacks on the United States of America, resulting in your extrajudicial kidnapping and disappearance straight onto your black site, for which the government will deny all knowledge. But you know what? I don't think we should be comparing Warhammer to luxury hobbies. Instead, I think it's smarter to compare it to, I don't know, how about other Warhammers? There's just something about comparing like with like that gets my scientific little brain churning. In fact, you know what? Hell, let's go for it. Let's go for the wild discourse jamboree of comparing how cheap is Warhammer anyway. So the new Vanguard box is £85 and comes with 17 hard plastic monopose models that can't be customized. These are Primera Space Marines, so we're gonna say they're around 35mm in size. Now let's see what we can get with the same amount of cash if we are lucky enough to live in an area where people play more than a single war game. So let's take a spin around the Mantic Games website. Okay, so for £75 we can get the Maison Lab Strike Force, and it's even £10 cheaper. This comes with 45 models. The infantry are all hard plastic and they look pretty cool. This is a pretty substantial force for firefight, but like a Vanguard box for Warhammer, it's not quite enough to be finished with your collection. Nevertheless, it's a pretty good start and the minis look great. For £70 we can get 3 boxes of Wargames Atlantic models. Ooh, that'll get us around 72 infantry units. These models are closer to 28mm, but we're gonna get substantially more of them. And this range is filled with all sorts of options options and customizability, a kit basher's dream. Or we can go a tiny bit more expensive at £89 and take a trip to Warlord Games. And for that price, we'll be able to pick up an army box. For example, the British 8th Army starter box here. This is the British in Africa in World War II. This bundle comes with 42 models, and overall these miniatures are a smaller scale. They're at 28mm, but you do get some vehicles in here too, and a bunch of weapon themes. Overall, more value. And then we have Battletech, and they don't really sell anything similar to this because there's no real concept of a full army in that game, or really anything at this price point. But generally, Battletech is just way cheaper, and if you like mechs, you should probably just be playing that game instead. And hell, even if we don't want to look at bundles, if we just want to look at core infantry, Warhammer still is far more expensive than any other game if all you're going to do is buy a squad of infantry. Almost every single game, especially army games, are a lot cheaper than Warhammer. So then, can we as a community come together and agree that at least in the context of wargaming, Warhammer is extremely expensive and that it doesn't need any more price rises? Forget supply and demand or what the market will bear or making excuses or comparing it to waterboarding. If we can't all agree that the prices for Warhammer are high, then I'm not sure that anything will ever change unless Games Workshop just totally lose their market monopoly, which doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. And yet here I am, Sisyphus, pushing up that boulder with every video. And if you want to help support this content, why not subscribe to the channel or check out my Patreon at patreon.com/discourseminiatures. And I want to give a huge thanks to my patrons, especially CryptoKev, Mistress Arby, Novany, and Travis Hunter, who really do help me push up that boulder. I really appreciate it, guys, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye-bye.